Well, thanks for coming. I'm Angel Lynskey in the College of Education, and this is a kind of follow-up to the introduction to qualitative research that we had the last time there was someone from the College of Education. I think there was somebody between us, right?
There was.
But this is kind of a follow-up to one before that, with these two lovely ladies. So this is, I like to put all the things that I do in real-life contexts because I think we learn better when we can connect it to something that we are familiar with. So, ooh, hey now. So I think we see what I'm going to be talking about today a lot in real life. And so one of the places I think it comes up a lot is on Facebook, where people say all kinds of things because you can communicate really quickly. There's a sense of anonymity. So I wanted to do this, an example from a Facebook debate. I put, debate. There's a question mark there because I'm not sold on the idea that it's a real debate. But a guy I knew in high school put this post on his Facebook wall. Okay? Just take a hot second, get familiar with what's going on there. Is it okay if I click it? Now? Okay. And then start the commentary. And this ran for just days. All the comments showed up on this. And I only have 2 slides of it, okay? Is it?
Yeah, it's sensitive. It's really
I'm
sensitive.
just going to put that down. This is not all the comments. There are 2 PowerPoint slides of comments. So take a minute and read through the comments and think about what trends you're picking up on. Trends in both the content and the tone of the comments. And tell me when I should push the button. Did it do it?
No,
No.
it's just funny
Okay.
reading the, as it goes.
Oh, yeah, that last one I had to read twice to fully appreciate it.
Staying out of the way. Should I click it? Are we at clickage? I'm doing it unless someone says no, doing it. Too late, did it. Same thing. Look at the comments. Find some themes in both content and tone.
Oh, they clicked.
Okay, I didn't touch that. So, what themes are you picking up? What things do you notice in this exchange? And let me know if it moves on without me, let me know and I'll try to catch up. What themes do we notice in this exchange?
Sarcasm.
Lots of sarcasm.
There is some sarcasm. There's particularly one person, right, who is just going straight for sarcasm. What else do we notice?
It got personal really quick.
It does get personal really quickly, doesn't it? If you disagree with me, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. And we see this a lot. I mean, does anybody watch cable news? It doesn't matter which one you're watching. We see that really quickly, right? 2 talking heads, and they are taking turns saying things, and we generally call that pattern a discussion, but I'm not sure there's any real communication happening because we go straight to the personal, and if you don't agree with me, then you're wrong, and let me fall back on sarcasm because I can't have an exchange with you because I think your position is ridiculous, right? Have you ever had an exchange like this where it seems like there are at least two different conversations going on, and it seems that despite the fact that there are conversations, there's no communication occurring? Is this a thing that we've experienced?
Yes.
I'm the queen of this. I'm the queen of not communicating well. One of the things that gets in the way of communication is our assumptions. Like, we bring to the table various assumptions that color the way we're perceiving not just the original post, but the secondary commentary, right? So what are some of the assumptions that are evident in the comments?
Marriage is a religious act.
there is an assumption that marriage is religious, not civic, right? And if that's your assumption, you automatically approach the discussion from one particular direction. Can I click it? So the foundation upon which we build our assumptions is our epistemology. That's the academic word. I don't even know. That's the academic word for the things that we build our assumptions upon, and epistemology is the study of knowledge and how knowledge can be acquired. It's how we know things. How do we come to know things? How is knowledge constructed? And so the thing we need to remember is that knowledge isn't this thing that exists outside of human experience. Knowledge isn't a thing that we find, it's a thing that we build based on our interaction between ourselves and the assumptions that we're bringing and the things that we experience in the world. And so this epistemology, the way that we perceive the world and how knowledge is built, tends to change over time. And we have this, we start absolutists usually as children, which is that this is the way it is. There's a black and the white, there's the right and the wrong. Things are very clear cut because things are very simple when we're kids. This is the absolutist perspective. And then usually we progress a little bit to, well, I can see why you think that's the way it is. I'm not going to say that I agree, but I can see why you think that's true. That's the multiplist perspective. And then the research indicates that not everyone moves to the evaluativist position, but if you get there, that's kind of the, let's consider our options and then we'll decide how it is. I'm not committed to this is the way it is. I'm going to look at all the things and hear what you have to say about it, and then we'll evaluate our choices and pick the way it is. Right? So what questions do we have about what epistemology is and how it kind of evolves over time as we get more experiences? Really? Because it's kind of abstract, so I just want to check in. We're good? Can I click it? Okay. All right. So how does your epistemology develop? How does your assumption about the way the world works and how knowledge exists, how does that develop? Well, it starts with our epistemology. Our epistemology starts in our positionality, which is acknowledging your placement in context of power, structures, and identities. Acknowledging that where you are in the world influences how you see the world. And this is true physically and kind of metaphorically, right? So if I am down the hall at the far end, how does someone who is at the other far end look? It's a we, right? That's because my position influences how I see that other person. But if I walked halfway down the hallway, what would happen to the person? They would grow, right? But the person didn't really grow. It's just that my position changed, and so what I saw changed, right? So our positionality is acknowledging that our placement changes how we see things. And that can be in power structures, in social context, which identity is the most evident in a particular social situation. Those things influence our positionality. So the identity that you have when you are at home with your guardians is different than the identity that you have when you are in class, which is different than the identity you have when you are out with your friends on Friday night, right? You are three different people. You're all wrapped up in one whole you, but different parts of you have primacy in different contexts, right? So your positionality changes. How are we on positionality? Yeah? Okay. And so that leads to your epistemology, how you interpret the things that come to you to build what knowledge means. And for research purposes, this leads to a paradigm, which is the framework through which information is interpreted in a research context. Okay. So how are we doing? We good with positionality, epistemology, and paradigm? Yeah? Okay. So why is it important for us to discuss this at Eureka? Well, our epistemology has an effect on our research, and that's, I don't even know. That's what we're here for, right? So the literature says that your epistemology has a significant impact on what you research, the questions that you choose to investigate, how you collect your data, how you're going to try to answer that question, and how you interpret the data. I mean, your epistemology affects all those different parts of the research process, so it's kind of an important aspect of research. And when we talked about the different epistemological stances, the different epistemology categories that you could be in through your development, one thing that we see is that absolutists tend to argue for unsupported conclusions that ignore evidence that contradicts their conclusion, right? Because if we believe that things are one way, we can't acknowledge things that contradict that. So our epistemology can help us see things in a new way, but it can also limit the things that we see, right? So far, so good? I like to check in a lot. When it's abstract, it's hard. The more abstract it is, the harder it is, you know. So here's an example of this, right? And this is really a big deal in qualitative research because as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, you look at the data and then you develop your theory, right? So obviously how you see the world will influence the theories that you develop, right? But it also plays out in what we call the hard sciences, the more quantitative sciences. And so here's an example right here in Texas of how epistemologies are shaping the direction that people are taking their inquiry into even hard sciences. So Dallas researchers are out to scientifically prove the biblical version of creation. They quit their jobs at universities and have decided to dedicate their lives to proving that the world was created in 6 24-hour time periods, right? And here, this is one quote from the article. The rationale behind it is this: if God really does exist, he shouldn't be lying to us. And if he's lying to us right off the bat in the book of Genesis, we've got some real problems. So what are some of the underlying assumptions that are informing this inquiry?
God's a boy.
God is a boy. Good one, because I even preacher's daughter, so I kind of took that one for granted.
Time is all the same.
Time is a fixed thing. Good. What else? What are some other assumptions that are evident in this statement? I'm gonna wait. I taught high school. I can wait all day.
Would it kind of be about, like, you know, God's this holistic being that's perfect, so if he's lying, then he really doesn't exist because God is everything.
Boom. Jacob identified two pretty big assumptions, right? God exists and God doesn't lie. Right? Those are two pretty big assumptions from which to start your inquiry. So far, we good about how this even applies to hard? I put that in quotes because I think, as a qualitative researcher, I'm kind of like, my science is hard. I'm hard, right? But it's not. You know, people who do quantitative research generally tend to think that qualitative research is a soft science. But even in the hard sciences, we see how epistemologies influence what we decide to do. So, comparing quantitative and qualitative, some of this is a review, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through it real quickly. Okay, in the quantitative perspective, facts have an objective reality, right? Facts are what they are, and you don't really get to interpret them. You just see them. In the qualitative, we're like, fact. I'm not comfortable with fact. I have more perception that needs to be interpreted, right? And so what tends to happen is we say, in some ways, that qualitative researchers are a little bit more comfortable acknowledging their epistemologies. It's difficult, it's more difficult. It's difficult for qualitative researchers. We're going to practice it, it's hard. It's difficult for qualitative researchers to acknowledge their own epistemologies and the things that are informing the way they see the world, but it can be super hard for quantitative researchers because things like numbers we take for granted as entities that don't need our interpretation. Does that make sense when I say that? And again, just to kind of review, in qualitative, we have primacy of the subject matter. That's the most important thing. We see a thing and we go, I wonder what's up there. I'm going to look into that some. How am I going to look into that? Is the follow-up question, right? And in a quantitative perspective, it's primacy of method. I know how I'm gonna look into it. All I'm looking for is a question to which I can apply my methods. It's the same method, right?